Welcome to Experiencing God's Stories at Cedar Crest, the podcast where we celebrate the incredible ways God is moving in and through the lives of His people. Here we share real stories of experiencing a real God, testimonies here to inspire, encourage, and remind us of His faithfulness. So whether you're driving, at home, or on the go, take a moment to hear how God is changing lives. We're so glad that you're here to experience these stories with us. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Experiencing God's Stories at Cedar Crest. We're excited that you're here. We've got another good story for you guys today. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves. We'll start with Jason. We'll work our way around the table. So
I'm Jason Hicks. Been a follower of Christ since 2020. Been going here at Cedar Crest about the same amount of time. I don't know what else you want.
That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell us your blood type, your social security.
No, well, I can tell you I'm married, no kids.
Yeah. Mary and Jason, that's his wife's name.
Yes.
He's married to Mary. They're some really good friends of ours. And then, come on, tell us.
I'm Mike Hatton. I'm Jason's driver at the fire department. I'm 38. I'm married also. I've been married 18 years. We've got 3 kids, 12, 14, and 16. And they're a handful. They're feral kids almost. But they're good. They've got a variety of personality, so it's good. At an early age, was brought into church a lot by an aunt who cared about us and made sure that we knew who Jesus was and stuff. And then when I moved into adulthood, I pretty much left, the church and started, becoming pretty worldly. And it just happens recently that I have been, for the past probably year and a half, 2 years, really been trying to get the strength and the courage to get back into church and start, working on my faith. And here I am driving Jason, and here we are coming to church on Sundays while we're on shift. And it's like almost like the Lord brought me right to His door. Said, all you got to do now is get out and walk in,
Yeah.
So,
which is honestly what kind of brought us here is the story of just what life looks like when you live it with believers, right? So we're going to talk through the story of you guys, and all from the premise of, hey, we just started a series called Experiencing God. That was literally like, I know we haven't seen each other for a while because we haven't been doing life group. You were back, you came with the young bucks, and that was an experience. But the first week you guys came back was the first week we started the Experiencing God series. So I want to dive into that. So Jason, give us a little background as far as, I know he's your driver, right? So,
yes.
So give us some background. What's been going on the past, I don't know, how long y'all been working together?
About 3 months, 2 months-ish.
yeah, somewhere around there.
Maybe
Around October.
October, November-ish.
All right. Tell us about what's happened since October.
So he got transferred to Wallace, which is my station. My driver went to the office to work EMS officer spot. And it's just been, so on Sundays, when he came over, we were doing the college age, and I was helping you with that class. And Mikey would start attending, and we just had some conversations, godly conversations, gospel conversations, whatever you want to say. And it just has, started to work in him, it seems to me. And so then we started the Experiencing God class, and he's been wanting to get into a class, but he didn't really feel like the college age was really a fit for him. He didn't really fit in. I mean, so it just was a good opportunity. I asked him, if he would be interested in coming to our class, and he said, yeah, of course, I've been wanting to get in. So it's just, God kind of pressing on my heart to ask him, and he just said yes. So here we are.
Yeah, that's
we
awesome. So it didn't just start with the invitation, right? Jason's probably been talking to your ear off for a while.
Yeah. So that's just a constant thing. Like just about every shift, we'll have some kind of conversation about God or spiritual truths or whatever you want to say here. But yeah.
So this is off the cuff. what's it like working with Jason? I'm just kidding.
It's actually pretty fun. You know, we laugh a lot.
Yeah, he's a funny guy.
He
He's
laughs
very
at everything,
dry.
so it's really easy to be funny with Jason.
No, I don't laugh at everything. He's just funny.
Well, he laughs at my kids a whole lot, so that's okay. So we have this like work relationship, right? And then Jason obviously talking nonstop about the Bible because that's all Jason and I ever talk about is the Bible. And then we get to like this impasse where he's like, "Hey, I want you to come to group with me," and you're like, "Yes."
But there's that trust that was built. you
Oh
know?
yeah,
So he's seen my witness. He's seen my character.
yeah,
He's seen me in spots. Show kindness, to be patient. And so I think that trust, that relationship is necessary. It just like as that grows, then it gives me an opportunity more so to, speak the gospel.
yeah. I agree. What do you think?
I think that's a good way to put it, is he is very patient. We got a couple of examples that I could give, but he's very forgiving and very patient.
Yeah,
You know, really difficult to get him really worked up. I don't guess I've ever seen him actually get angry. To the point where I'm like, man, what's wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
Not like a younger me. I was a very angry young man. Now that I'm old, I feel like I've gotten a lot of patience, but still not what he's showed me in just a few months.
Well, I don't think that was always with me, though. I think that was a change that came along with the fruits of the Spirit, So pre-2020, I would have raged. I would have gotten angry, So I think that's just my growing in faith has kind of got me more holy or more like God, and to show His attributes through me.
that's good. So talk to us about what was going on in your life leading up to taking that step to come with Jason and get plugged into a real group, not a kid group.
So it actually goes back a pretty good way. Whenever my younger son, he was about 2, I think it was September 11th of 2013, we were pushing him on a tire swing at the house when we lived out off 546, and had the small kids on a big giant tractor tire, big swing. We had some older kids that were like pre-teens. We were going to push them, but we are going to push them a little faster than the little kids. So we take the little kids off and we're swapping them out. Well, for whatever reason, my son decided he was going to run to the road, and we're in the middle of doing this, and we didn't notice, and he runs out there and gets hit by a car on 546, and that scared me. That's probably the scariest day of my life, and
Wow.
and immediately the first thing I thought was, God saved my son, from tragedy.
Yeah.
He had a couple of minor injuries, cracked chin and some busted out teeth, but aside from that, he was fine. So immediately, like, hey, we're getting back into church. We started going to church, and for whatever reason, I didn't feel like I was committing to it, and it lasted probably a couple of months, and then I'm right back at the house, on Sundays, and keep coming up with excuses why I shouldn't go, anytime something comes, no, I can't. And then, so that lasted for a few more years, and we started going to a different church, and my wife embraced the faith pretty good, and she's been praying for me for a while, and I can feel it, and I can, tell. She's always like, hey, why don't you come in, and again, making excuses, so the time came, and now it's been weighing on me heavily, and, I guess more conditions fell in, and there's no denying it at some point. I'm just being hard-headed, and
Well, that's just God moving,
yeah, he's definitely.
But He moves, and He's been moving forever. So that just sounds to me just like the story of Israel in the Old Testament. The valleys that I'm crying out to God. You look at David in the Psalms, and then he's on highs, and then he backslides. So I think that's just sometimes in His people, that happens.
Yeah. So, kind of taking that step, I got a lot of questions, but we'll start with the easy ones. So that pull that you feel, how would you describe it? And we talked in group this past week about like God pursuing us, that love relationship. Like, what did that feel like?
Well, and that's really a coincidence. That not really, but we were reading yesterday in the some half of John, and we were in John 6 and discussing this. So this is amazing, incredible, some might say.
Yeah. Yeah. So he was talking with our other guy about some different things. I'm kind of reading along with some verses that were in the notes. And, I'm doing my reading while he's over there talking. And he asked me something. I was like, well, that's funny you bring that up, because that's actually what I was just reading about here. So, I mean, it's like a story I heard about a grandpa and a grandson walking. And they said, well, Grandpa, weren't you scared walking in the woods? There would be rattlesnakes. He's like, well, I know there were rattlesnakes. I just wasn't looking for them, So it goes to, if you're looking, I promise you he's there. He's steady talking to me.
Yeah.
And, I just was, I guess, turning away. And it's sort of like we've been talking about in group. I guess it's the shame that you feel whenever you know you're not living right. And, we want to get ourselves perfect. And it's not the way it works. And at some point, I guess I was overcome. Like, all right, I'm ready as I'm going to be.
Yeah.
Well, that was similar to me, though, also. So Mary was still trying to go to church, and she would just ask me, hey, I'd love for you to come with me, hey, and praying for me. So we have a similar situation and background there, But that's just God just continually just reaching out, like Ephesians says, but God rich in mercy. So he's always trying to be the initiator and try to get us to come to him. But we are hard-headed, as you say, and just stubborn sometimes.
Yeah. So here's the follow-up question. All right, that press and that pull, right, that you feel, it's easy to kind of like ignore it. That's what you were talking about. What would you say to somebody who feels that in their life right now? Like they feel that pull, they feel that pressure, that tension, and they're kind of just trying to ignore it. Man, what would you say to them?
Well, so it's like I was talking with Jason about. It makes it hard to commit sometimes when you think about, hey, look, all these guys that know me know that I'm a sinner. They've seen me living in the world. I don't want them to look and think that I'm a hypocrite. And it's hard to overlook that. But at the same time, I don't want God to see me as the guy that's turning him away because of these people that are here on the earth with me. So, I think that if you're feeling that pull, you're looking as, stubborn as you might be, just get your priorities right, and realize that we're here for one purpose and that we have one destination or the other, and one's much better than the other. And there's only one way to get there. Yeah,
it's true. I think back in my own life, when I felt that pull and that tension, it goes back to what we were talking about last week during life group, is like the guilt and shame, right? You listen to the guilt and shame more than you listen to the person who's calling you. And that's the tension of, hey, how do you clean out your ears enough to hear God clearly? Sometimes he gets your attention.
Yeah.
So this one also right off the cuff. I think both of you can answer that. So both of your wives prayed for you before you kind of like took that step. What was that like? What was that like at home? Like, was there tension? And then maybe even a follow-up. How would you encourage maybe spouses that are doing that right now, that are praying for their spouse to take it seriously or to get saved? How would you encourage them in that? Because it's lonely.
Yeah, I would just, if either way, whoever's doing the praying, just be continual, and just stay the course, and just keep praying, because we know that God moves first, so He has to move, but at the same time we have a responsibility to love, to show a witness, as He said, and just to keep praying, and so.
Yeah. What was it like think back 2020, Jason, knowing that Mary is beating down heaven's door for you?
Well, okay, so she was still a Christian and saved to me. Looking, I'm not the judge, but of course, just thinking back, But I was pulling her down. It wasn't like, I'm very hard-headed and stubborn, so it wasn't her necessarily. She was trying to pull me up, but
Yeah.
it was more so me pulling her down, and she wouldn't go sometimes because of me.
Yeah.
You know, she wanted to go with me, but if I wouldn't go, she wouldn't go.
Yeah.
And I would pull her down and pull her into the world. So, but 2020 comes and there's a rapid and I don't know the word, I won't, but just a change in my life that was just incredible, crazy, that then I was leading her and getting her, hey, we're going to go, let's go to church, you know, and we just started to go to life group, and that meant a lot to us, you know, the community and the gathering together and the accountability that comes with that, you know. So it was then me doing as I'm supposed to and leading my family and getting them going in the right direction towards God, you know.
Yeah.
So
That's good. What about you?
Yeah, similar. Of course, you know, different family dynamic, I reckon, but my wife has always, you know, she's like a saint. You know, she's been so good to me, and thinking back at, you know, 2011 me, it's incredible how different, you know, I was then, and I don't see how she put up with me for as long as she has, and like Jason's saying, with Mary praying for him, you know, I knew that Anna had been praying for me because, you know, I mentioned earlier she'll bring it up, you know, are we going, you know, and I could tell that it got to her, and she did really good, you know, bringing the kids and trying to keep, and then I start feeling the guilt, like, hey, that's, you know, that's supposed to be me, you know, getting the family, you know, together and making sure that we're all living for Christ instead of her doing it by herself, on top of the other things that she does by herself, you know, while I'm gone, and even while I'm at home, she, you know, the laundry and all this other stuff, and she works too, you know, so I was being selfish and just living how I wanted to live and leaving everything up to her. So, of course, you know, I started feeling convicted about that also, and really guilty. So, I mean, it's just a huge culmination of things where, you know, you can ignore the whispers for a while, but you're going to eventually get a shake on the shoulder, and at some point you can't ignore it, you know.
or a valley in your case,
Yeah.
you know. So
So how would you encourage somebody who's praying for their spouse right now and they don't feel like there's any change?
I say keep it up, you know. Everybody's dynamic is a little different. I think that my wife did well with not being super pushy, but she was stern, you know. She let me know that she was upset whenever I wasn't going, but she wasn't, you know, wasn't rude about it or anything. I didn't feel like she was judging me. She was patient with me, but she was consistent too. So I think that for most people that's probably the best way. But then again, you know, everybody would know their spouse better, you know, so be persistent, you know.
well, and just a reminder sometimes of, you know, what Christ has done. I think that can be big, and just, you know, on that topic, you know, that's not for just the unbelievers. It's for the believers just as well, as, you know, as Romans 1:8 says, that Paul was talking about the believers in the church of Romans, that the gospel was for them too. So whether they're unsaved, or like in my case, and Mary's trying to get me to come, or whether it's Mikey's case and needs to be pulled back, like the 1 in 99 sheep, you know, God's calling him back. Either way, it's the same result. The gospel is needed, you know.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I love what you said as you were kind of talking. You talked about feeling guilty, and then you said conviction, which I think is powerful. I think a lot of times people get conviction and guilt mixed up. Like, guilt makes you run away. Conviction draws you close. I mean, conviction can also make you run away, right? But that's the purpose of it. Is guilt is to push you away from God. Right. Conviction is to bring you to God. How'd you figure out the difference?
Well, so, like I say, if you're looking or listening, he's talking, you know, so the guilt is everywhere, but the conviction usually comes whenever I'm praying, or I'm trying to think about, you know, how do I make this decision, you know, or whether I'm asking forgiveness, you know. It's like anytime I think like, man, what am I doing wrong? Immediately, thought comes across my
Yeah.
mind like, oh yeah, I did say that the other day. Yeah, that probably wasn't the right thing to say, or
Yeah.
something along those lines. If I feel like if I'm listening, the answer is right there. He's telling me, okay, well, you know what you did,
Yeah.
so.
All right. I've been waiting to ask this one. And you don't have to go into super detail, okay? But you mentioned Jason's patience and kindness about 4 times. Why do you think that was so important in your relationship building, like at work and just a personal relationship? Because that's what you guys have now, is a personal relationship, a friendship. Why was that such an important thing for you to be able to like trust and kind of like let Jason speak into your life?
So, yeah, immediately we, got along really well when we started working together. Went and played cornhole with him. And we, hung out at the station and this and that. Well, the biggest thing probably as far as a witness to his character and the fruits of his relationship with God is he let me borrow his car. Something happened with my truck or something, and it was at the station, broke down.
Mm-hmm.
So for a few days I drove his car.
Yeah.
Really nice Camaro. Well, I'm not a big fan of borrowing people's things, especially some. I've always been a car guy. I know how big of an investment that is. So that happens. I get the truck fixed and start driving it around. Hunting season's coming up. Well, the truck's not really fixed. I just fixed one part that was broken. It actually had a bigger issue, so I had to put it in the shop. He's like, "You want to borrow my car?" Like, "No, man. I got another buddy. He wants to let me use his truck. And I need a truck. I'm going to be going hunting." He's like, "Well, use my truck." He's got a brand new 2020 Colorado. He's like, "Yeah, just use my truck." Like, "No." He's like, "Yeah, man, it's okay." So I ended up borrowing his truck, and less than 2 weeks later, I'm leaving the woods and hit a tree, headed to my mama's house, like messed his quarter panel up pretty bad. And I'm like, about to cry out there in the woods in Downsville, like, golly, man, I just messed this guy's truck up, dude.
Yeah.
I'd be so furious, and I, immediately called him, "Hey, man, I messed your truck up." He was like, "What happened?" I was like, "I hit a tree leaving the woods." He was like, "Okay, we'll see what Bum can do about it,
Yeah, I was like, don't worry about it. Like that doesn't matter to me. That's physical, Like, and what was in my head going through that? Like, was I slightly agitated? Of course, like I'm human, but the bigger goal is, like Christ says, I'm going to be all things to all people. So, in that situation, I'm going to show as much love and kindness as I can. For our relationship, to maybe there's an opportunity,
Yeah.
That's how I always think about things,
Yeah. So that was kind of like the big thing. It was like,
Yes, the,
wow, this
the
dude's
amount of
for real.
mercy that he showed there is, because I would have been furious,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, and we had a chief too, and he came in and said he found out about it and was kind of ribbing Mikey, and I said, "No, don't worry about it. For real, don't let this bother you." And he just said, "How are you not mad? I cannot get it. How are you not mad?" I said, "I'm just not. I don't care about it,
Yeah.
So,
Wow. It's cool to hear the story because I think we were with you guys when it happened.
Yeah.
You took your phone call. So it's cool because we had no clue what happened.
yeah.
But to kind of see the whole story come together is pretty awesome.
but that's the Lord's plan,
Yeah.
Like he used, like this is just like Joseph and the brothers. Like the brothers meant that for evil. Like this was a bad thing, and like something that Mikey never would have wanted to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But God used it for good.
Yeah.
Like he's here, not solely because of that,
Yeah.
but he's doing this podcast today, and that played a part of it.
Yeah.
That grew my witness with him.
Yeah. Yeah. And prepared fertile ground for the gospel for sure.
Yeah.
Listen, I guess the moral of the story is wreck people's cars. You just share the gospel with them.
Right.
Listen, I'm so glad we got to sit down and kind of hear how through this whole experiencing God process, it's more than a book. It's, hey, God is doing this. Like we've learned week 1, he's always on the move. And this week is all about, hey, he's always on the move. He loves you. now he wants you to join in with him, which I think is super powerful, just to hear the story of what grace and mercy will do when we show it to each other. So I'm glad you guys got to join in. We're going to wrap this up, and I know the limelight is too much, so we'll shut it down, and we'll probably make some jokes after this. How's that sound?
Good.
Awesome. Well, guys, thanks for joining us. We'll see you back here for our next episode.